crush your enemy totally. Not just a little bit, not, until they say they're sorry. Crush them until they physically, emotionally, financially cannot recover.
It's brutal.
That is Law 15. And I have to ask you, right off the bat, is that sound strategic advice for your life, or is that the handbook of a sociopath?
It sounds horrific, doesn't it? I mean, it sounds like something a villain says in a Bond movie just before he gets thrown into a volcano.
Right.
But then, we look at history. We look at someone like Chiang Kai-shek leaving Mao Zedong alive, thinking he was being merciful or maybe just, arrogant.
And then he gets completely swept away by him later.
Completely. He loses all of China. So we have to ask this really uncomfortable question. Is power inherently evil? Or is it just gravity? Is it just a force of nature that exists whether we like it or not?
Welcome to the deep dive. And today we are doing something very different. This is the other side of the argument. We are taking on what might be the most controversial, the most polarized, and frankly, the most dangerously fascinating book we have ever covered.
I want you to take a second and just think about the last time you felt powerless. Maybe it was in a meeting, where someone just straight up stole your idea and everyone else, they just nodded along.
Oh, that's the worst.
Right. Or maybe it was in a relationship where you felt like you were always the one chasing, always the one apologizing.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was just watching the news, seeing politicians say one thing and do the complete opposite, and you get this feeling that the whole world is just this giant rigged game.
It is a game.
And you don't have the manual for it.
It's the oldest game in human history, and unfortunately for most of us, there are people out there playing by a set of rules we were never taught.
Not at all.
In fact, we were taught the exact opposite. Be nice. Be fair.
Be honest.
Be honest. And that's the trap.
And that is exactly where we are going today. We're talking about The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene.
And this book it's a Rorschach test, isn't it?
It absolutely is. Some people read it and they see a manual for pure evil. A guide for con artists, for narcissists, for manipulators. I mean, they've wanted to ban it from prisons.
Which they actually did in some places.
They did. And then other people, they read it and they see the ultimate survival guide. It's a guide for a world that is, let's be honest, trying to eat you alive sometimes.
Exactly. So today, we aren't just summarizing the laws. We are going to fight over the soul of this book. We're going to look at the hooks that make you just want to throw it across the room, like Law 2.
Law 2. Never put too much trust in friends.
Yeah, why you should fear your friends more than your enemies. I mean, who wants to live like that?
And the kicker is, why hiring a former enemy is actually safer than hiring your best friend. It's so counterintuitive, it feels completely wrong, but the historical data that Greene brings to back it up is, well, it's staggering.
Or how about Law 12? Use selective honesty to disarm your victim. The whole idea that telling the truth isn't some great virtue, it's a tactical weapon you deploy at just the right moment to lower someone's guard.
There's that line from the source material that sets the whole tone. Honesty is a blunt instrument that bloodies more than it cuts.
Oof, yeah. So here's our mission for the next hour or so. We are going to dive headfirst into this controversy. We're going to pit the idealist view that these laws are toxic, that they're paranoid, that they destroy trust against the pragmatist view.
The view that says these laws are just the inevitable mechanics of human nature, whether we like them or not.
And the goal here isn't to turn you into a tyrant. Please do not go out after this and start plotting against your neighbors.
No, please don't. The goal is to stop the echo chamber. Because whether you want to wield power yourself or you just want to stop someone else from wielding it against you, you just can't afford to ignore these rules.
We want to find that middle ground. How do you use these tools to benefit your life without, losing your soul in the process?
That's the billion-dollar question.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the absolute foundation, the philosophy of the game itself. Because I think the biggest pushback I hear, and frankly the way I often feel when I'm reading this stuff is, I don't want to play this game.
Right. I'm not like that.
Exactly. I don't want to view my coworkers as enemies in waiting. I don't want to view my friends as potential traitors. Can't I just opt out? Can't I just be a nice person and ignore all this Machiavellian stuff?
And that is what Greene calls the non-player fallacy. And he is very specific and, frankly, pretty ruthless about this in the source material.
Okay.
He argues that the world is essentially a giant scheming court. It's very similar to the aristocratic courts of old Europe, like with Louis XIV. And the person who stands up and says, oh, I don't play power games, is usually the one playing the most sophisticated game of all.
Wait, hold on. How does that work? If I say I'm opting out, if I'm just like, hey, I just want to do my job and go home, How is that a power move? That sounds like the literal opposite of a power move.
Well, think about the nice guy in the office. You know the one. The person who's always talking about how much they hate office politics.
Yeah, I'm above it all.
I'm just here to work. I don't care about titles. But then, what happens when they don't get the promotion they secretly wanted?
They usually get really upset.
Yeah.
They vent to everyone about how unfair it is.
Precisely. They use their moral superiority as a strategy. They display their weakness or their demand for fairness as a virtue to gain sympathy or maybe to guilt others into giving them what they want.
Oh, babe.
Greene calls it the refusal to play, but notice the dynamic there. By claiming they aren't playing, they're actually demanding that the game stop for everyone else, too. They're trying to shame the sharks into acting like dolphins.
And that's a manipulation tactic.
It's a very subtle one, but yes, they're trying to change the rules of the game to suit them, all while pretending they're not even on the board.
So you're saying that even the person who claims to be a pacifist is playing a game. They're just using the guilt trip card instead of the ambition card.
Exactly. And here's the kicker, the part that really hurts to hear. Powerlessness makes you miserable.
Mm-hmm.
If you truly opt out, if you truly have zero influence, zero ability to maneuver, you aren't noble. You're a victim. You have no control over your time, your resources, your own safety. Greene argues you can only be one of two things in this court. You can be a bungler or you can be an artist.
A bungler or an artist? Explain that.
The bungler plays with fire human emotions, ambition, envy without knowing how it works, and they just get burned.
This is the person who says the wrong thing to their boss in a meeting.
Trusts the wrong coworker with a secret.
And then cries unfair
Yeah.
when it all blows up in their face.
That's the bungler. The artist, on the other hand, understands the dynamics. They accept that gravity exists. They don't have to like it, but they learn how to work with it.
This is the cynical versus realist debate right here, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Side A says power is inescapable. It's like the air we breathe. Side B says this is just paranoia. It's a horrible way to live.
It is.
But there's this phrase in the source material that really stuck with me, and I want to drill into it a bit. The velvet glove.
Yes. It's originally from Napoleon's advice, I believe. Put your iron hand inside a velvet glove.
That image is so visceral.
Mm-hmm.
But what does it actually look like in practice? Because, to me, it just sounds like being two-faced.
It is the perfect metaphor for what we call civilized society. Look, we can't walk around like cavemen clubbing each other for resources anymore.
Oh, no.
We have to appear decent. We have to seem democratic and fair and cooperative. That is the velvet glove. That's the smile you wear at the morning meeting. It's the polite email you send to the client who is driving you absolutely crazy.
Okay, right. The social lubricant.
Yes. But underneath that glove, if you don't have the iron hand, the prudence, the cunning, the willingness to defend your own interests, the velvet glove just collapses. If you're only velvet, you get crushed. People walk all over you.
So the argument is that civilization, all of our politeness and social rules, is just a mask.
Yeah.
That underneath it all, we're still dealing with the same old dark emotions, greed, envy, hatred that have existed since the Stone Age.
That is the core premise of the book. The court of Louis XIV at Versailles was the absolute height of refinement. Beautiful clothes, beautiful manners, ballet, opera.
The peak of culture.
But underneath all that silk and perfume, it was a shark tank. People were literally poisoning each other. They were spreading rumors to ruin reputations for sport. And the source argues that your office, your family gathering at Thanksgiving, your social circle, it's exactly the same game.
The clothes are just different.
The clothes are different. We don't wear powdered wigs, but the sharks are still swimming.
Okay. If we accept for a moment that the sharks are swimming,
yeah,
and I'm still fighting the urge to say that's a bleak worldview, but let's roll with it. Let's look at how to survive. This brings us right to section 2. The dangers of authenticity versus the power of concealment. Because we are told constantly today, be yourself, be authentic, bring your whole self to work. Don't hide who you are.
And Law 1 says, flat out, never outshine the master. This is a direct attack on the entire modern cult of authenticity.
Let's talk about Nicolas Fouquet.
Yeah.
Because this story is just, it's tragic, it's cinematic. I mean, here's a guy who really thought he was doing the right thing.
He did. He's the finance minister for the young King Louis XIV. He knows the king loves luxury, he loves grand parties, he loves to be impressed.
So Fouquet thinks, I'm going to throw the best party the world has ever seen. I'll show the king how loyal I am, how rich the kingdom is under my management, and how good I am at my job.
And you have to paint the picture of this party. This wasn't just a get-together with some balloons.
Yeah.
This was at his brand new chateau, Vaux-le-Vicomte, which was more magnificent than any of the king's palaces at the time. He had the greatest playwright, Molière, write a play specifically for the event. He had fireworks that lit up the entire sky. He had a 7-course meal featuring foods from the Orient that no one in France had ever even seen before. He had fountain spraying wine.
It sounds incredible. If I'm the king, I'm thinking, wow, my finance minister is a genius.
And that is exactly what Fouquet thought. He thought he was showing devotion. He thought, the king will see this and think I am an indispensable asset to the crown. But what did the king actually see?
The king saw a rival.
Worse than a rival. The king saw a man who was wealthier, more charming, and more connected than he was. Louis XIV was young, he was insecure, and here is his servant living a better, more glamorous life than he is. Fouquet didn't just shine, he outshone the master. He made the king feel small.
And the result wasn't a promotion.
The result was life imprisonment.
For life.
The king had him arrested the very next day. Fouquet spent the last 20 years of his life in a fortress in the Pyrenees. And why? Because he wounded the king's vanity.
That is terrifying. He did his job too well. He was too authentic about his success and his talent.
Now, contrast that with Galileo. Galileo was in a similar position. He needed funding, right? He needed the Medicis, the ruling family of Florence, to support his work.
Right, the patrons.
So he discovers the moons of Jupiter, a monumental scientific discovery. Now, he could have just published his findings and said, look how smart I am. I found new planets. Give me money. But he didn't do that.
No, he turned it into a brilliant marketing campaign for the Medicis.
He dedicated the moons to them. He wrote this elaborate, flattering dedication saying that the 4 moons represented the 4 sons of the Medici dynasty, all revolving around the father, Jupiter. He made the stars in the sky a literal symbol of their power, not his own intelligence.
He effectively said to them, even the heavens bow to the Medici family. It's incredible flattery.
It's genius-level flattery. And the result. He was instantly promoted to court philosopher and mathematician with a full salary for life. He made his masters appear more brilliant. He hid his own ego to feed theirs.
So the debate point here is this just sucking up? Is this being a sycophant? Because on the surface, it feels gross.
Yeah.
It feels like you have to dim your own light just to make some insecure boss feel better about themselves.
I'd argue it's survival. And it's high-level emotional intelligence. Look, if you are talented, if you are brilliant, you will naturally generate insecurity in those above you. That is just a fact of human nature.
That's a sad fact.
It is, but it's a fact. You can't stop being talented, but you can control how that talent is perceived. If you make your boss look like a genius because of your work, you are safe and you will rise. If you make your boss look like an idiot because you're always correcting them or showing off how much smarter you are,
you're Fouquet.
You are Fouquet. You are on your way to the dungeon or, the modern equivalent, and the unemployment line.
And that links perfectly to Law 4. Always say less than necessary. This one is hard for me. I'm a podcaster. I talk for a living. I literally process my thoughts by talking them out.
And the source material is absolutely brutal on this point. The more you say, the more common you appear.
And the higher chance you say something incredibly foolish.
Exactly. Look at Louis XIV again. He was the master of this. His courtiers would debate state issues for days. They'd prepare these elaborate, passionate arguments to try and sway him. They'd come to him trembling and deliver these huge speeches. And what would he say at the end?
I shall see.
I shall see, je verrai. And then he would just walk away.
That silence must have been terrifying.
It was. It kept everyone completely off balance. They couldn't figure out his position, so they couldn't manipulate him. They had no idea if he was angry or happy or just bored. His silence was a void, and they desperately projected all their own fears onto it.
In this era of oversharing of social media where we tweet every thought that pops into our heads, this law argues that silence creates awe. But why? What's the actual mechanism there?
I think it's biological. Humans are social creatures. We crave connection and feedback. If I sit across from you and I just stare at you and say nothing, it triggers a rejection fear response in your amygdala. You start to panic. You think, oh no, he hates me. I've done something wrong. I need to fix this. So what do?
I start talking. I babble. I try to fill the silence to reestablish the connection and make you like me again.
Exactly. And in doing so, you reveal information. You reveal your insecurity. You reveal your true position on the matter. Louis XIV hacked this biological response. Silence makes other people uncomfortable, and in their discomfort, they hand you power. They tell you things they really shouldn't.
But doesn't this destroy any chance of genuine connection? If I'm always concealing my intentions, which is law 3, am I not just lying all the time? If I'm sitting there doing the I shall see thing to my spouse or my friends, I'm going to end up very powerful and very alone.
Well, context is absolutely key. But let's look at Law 3. Conceal your intentions. The source argues that honesty is likely to offend.
But is it lying? I mean, that's the core question.
Let's look at Otto von Bismarck in the 1850s. He's a Prussian diplomat. He wants war with Austria. He's a total hawk. He believes the only way for Prussia to rise as a great power is to crush Austria.
Okay, that's his real intention.
That's his real intention. But the king is a dove. The king hates war. And the Prussian army isn't ready for a fight. If Bismarck stands up in parliament and screams, "We must destroy Austria now," what happens?
The king fires him. He's out. Game over.
Exactly. So what does he do? Does he just stay silent?
Based on what we just said, maybe?
No, he does something even more devious. He gives a speech defending peace. He praises Austria. He talks about the brotherhood of German-speaking nations. He confuses everyone. The anti-war party thinks, oh, Bismarck is one of us. He's changed his mind. They lower their guard. They stop blocking his promotions.
That completely played them.
He used a smokescreen. He became prime minister. And as soon as he had consolidated his power, and as soon as the army was modernized, he launched the war and absolutely crushed Austria.
That is incredibly manipulative.
Mm.
I mean, he lied to everyone's face for years to get the power to do the exact opposite of what he said he would do.
It is. It's pure deception. But the pragmatist argument is, was it effective? Yes. He unified Germany. He created an empire. The source argues that telling people what they want to hear is a civilized form of deception. If you are unabashedly open and honest about your ambitious plans, you just become predictable. And if you're predictable, you are very, very easy to stop.
This is where the idealist in me is just screaming. But the pragmatist in me is remembering every single time I've been too honest in a meeting about my big plans for a project, and then I watch someone else go and sabotage them before I could even get started.
We all have that memory. That's the bungler learning a very hard lesson.
Okay, let's move to section 3. If we can't even trust our own mouths, who can we trust? Can we trust our friends? Law 2 says, flat out, never put too much trust in friends, learn how to use enemies. This is the one that kind of breaks my heart a little. I mean, I want to trust my friends. That's what they're for.
It directly challenges the loyalty narrative we're all raised with. We think friends are the safest port in a storm. Greene argues that friends are actually more dangerous than enemies because they are so prone to envy.
The story of Michael III and Basilius is just, it's like a Greek tragedy. Walk us through this one.
So Michael III is the emperor of Byzantium. One day he's out at the stables and he sees this young stable boy, Basilius, taming a wild horse that no one else can handle. Michael is impressed. He thinks, I like this guy's grit. He has potential.
So he takes him under his wing?
He does more than that. He lifts him out of total poverty. He gives him money, an education, titles. He makes him his right-hand man, his confidant. He essentially creates him from nothing.
He gives him everything. He treats him like a brother, not an employee.
Absolutely. And Michael, from his perspective, assumes that Basilius is filled with overwhelming gratitude. He thinks, this guy will never betray me because he owes me his entire life. But psychology and history tell us something very different often happens.
What happens in Basilius's mind?
He grows resentful. Imagine being Basilius for a second. Every single time you look at the emperor, you are reminded that you are nothing without him. You didn't earn your position. It was a gift. That creates a deep sense of inferiority. The debt of gratitude becomes a heavy, crushing weight. It breeds shame, and shame so often curdles into hatred.
So instead of gratitude, he feels rage. And instead of hugging him, Basilius kills him.
He has Michael III murdered while he's sleeping and takes the throne for himself.
It's the ultimate betrayal. The person you trusted most, your best friend, becomes your assassin.
It's a pattern seen over and over. But now look at the countermove. Let's look at Emperor Sung of China, around 959 AD. He becomes emperor after a military coup. He looks around the room at his generals, his friends who helped him get power, and he knows exactly what they're all thinking.
They're all thinking, hey, if he could do it, then I can do it too.
Precisely. They are friendly wolves. Now, the standard move in Chinese history at that point would be to execute them all. Purge the leadership to secure your own position. But Sung does something absolutely brilliant. He invites them all to a grand feast.
Famous feast.
He gets them all drunk, happy, celebrating. And then in the middle of it, he sighs and says, "My friends, being emperor is so hard. I can't sleep at night because I'm worried one of you will overthrow me and take my job."
Oh, wow. He just puts it right on the table.
He does. The generals are terrified. They fall to their knees. They think they're all about to be killed. But Sung says, "Listen, life is short. Why should we stress about coups and betrayal? Why risk your lives? I will give you the best estates, the most beautiful women, all the gold you can possibly carry. Just retire."
He bought them out. He made them an offer they couldn't refuse.
He turned a pack of friendly wolves into a bunch of docile lambs. They all retired to their mansions, happy and rich, and Sung ruled securely for the rest of his life.
But the key part of Law 2 is the second half. Learn how to use enemies. Why is an enemy supposedly better to have on your team than a friend?
Because an enemy that you hire has something to prove. If you take a former rival, someone who knows you've defeated them, and you show them mercy and say, "I'm bringing you into my inner circle," they will work harder than anyone else to demonstrate their loyalty. They know they're on thin ice. They know the whole world expects them to fail or betray you.
Whereas a friend just feels entitled.
A friend thinks they deserve the job just because they know you. They get lazy. They start to rot from the inside with that envy we talked about. Greene has this great line, "An enemy spared the guillotine is more loyal than a friend who is promoted."
It's the difference between entitlement and desperation. And this law says you want the desperate guy on your team every time.
Precisely.
But then you get Law 7, get others to do the work, but always take the credit.
This just feels like the definition of a bad boss. I mean, we've all had this boss. You do all the work on the spreadsheet, and then they're the one presenting it to the board as their own. It's also the definition of efficiency in the world of power. The source uses the classic example of Tesla versus Edison. And this one hurts because we all love Tesla. He's the tragic hero.
He really is.
Tesla was the genius, the hunter. He found the ideas. He understood alternating current in a way nobody else did. But Edison was the businessman. He was, in Greene's terms, the vulture. He took Tesla's work, he took the work of dozens of other scientists in his lab at Menlo Park, and he put his name on the patents. And for the longest time, who was remembered as the great inventor of the 20th century?
It was Edison. And Tesla died broke and alone, feeding pigeons in a New York hotel, while Edison died a titan of industry.
The moral dilemma is very real. Is it intellectual theft? Yes, absolutely it is. But the pragmatic angle from the book is save valuable time and energy. Stand on the shoulders of giants. If you try to do everything yourself, if you try to be the inventor, the marketer, the CEO, and the salesman all at once, you will burn out. You will be Tesla.
So Greene is essentially saying, be Edison if you want to win.
He's saying that if you want power, you cannot get lost in the weeds of doing the work. You have to manage the work. You have to be the director of the movie, not the grip carrying the heavy camera. It's ruthless, but it's how empires are built. Rubens, the famous painter, did this. He had a factory of artists painting the backgrounds, the clothes, the trees in his paintings. He would just come in at the end, paint the face, sign his name, and sell it for a fortune.
Was he a fraud? Or was he a genius manager? I guess that really depends on if you're the guy painting the trees or the guy signing the check at the end of the day.
That brings us to a different kind of utilization, or maybe avoidance. Law 10. Infection. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky.
This one is so hard to read. We are taught to have empathy, to help those who are down on their luck. This law basically says, nope, run away fast.
It argues that emotional states are as infectious as diseases. And you know this feeling. We all have that one friend who is always, always in a crisis.
The drama magnet. Something is always going wrong for them.
And Greene argues it's not just bad luck, it's a pattern. They make bad choices, they alienate people, they react emotionally to everything, and then the world collapses around them again and again. His warning is, the unfortunate sometimes draw misfortune on themselves. They will also draw on you.
The case study for this is Lola Montez.
Lola Montez. Yeah. In the mid-19th century, she was a dancer, a courtesan, and she was incredibly charismatic. But everywhere she went, Paris, London, Munich chaos followed her. She seduced the King of Bavaria, Ludwig I, and within about a year of her arrival, his entire reign was destroyed.
Was it really because of her?
She meddled in politics she didn't understand. She insulted the entire establishment. She incited riots in the streets with her behavior. The king was so infatuated with her, he couldn't see the damage she was doing. He lost his throne because of his association with her. She was a carrier of chaos.
It sounds like cruel victim blaming, though, to say, oh, they draw misfortune to themselves. But have you ever tried to save a drowning person who is panicking?
They don't grab the life raft. They climb on top of you and they drown you both.
Exactly. That's the metaphor, isn't it?
That is Law 10. You must recognize that some people are drowning not because they can't swim, but because their strategy is to pull everyone else under with them. And you have to quarantine yourself for your own mental and emotional peace. It's not cruel, it's necessary hygiene.
This leads us into the darker territory of Section 4, aggression and defense. We've talked about avoiding people, but what about when you actually have to fight them? Law 15. Crush your enemy. Totally.
This is the most brutal law in the entire book. It's the one that makes people say, okay, this is just evil. The principle is brutally simple. If you leave a single ember alight, no matter how dimly it smolders, a fire will eventually break out again.
The historical context here is Empress Wu and, as you mentioned, Chiang Kai-shek. Let's start with Chiang again.
Chiang Kai-shek was the leader of China in the 1930s. He had the communists, led by Mao Zedong, on the absolute run. He had them cornered. He could have wiped them out completely. But he hesitated. He wanted to negotiate, maybe bring them into the fold. Or perhaps he just got distracted by the Japanese invasion.
He showed mercy, or at least he showed a lack of total focus.
And Mao escaped. He led the famous Long March. He rebuilt his army in the remote mountains. He learned from his mistakes. And years later, he came back and swept Chiang Kai-shek completely off the mainland to Taiwan. Chiang lost his entire country because he stopped halfway.
And Empress Wu, she didn't make that mistake.
Empress Wu of China did not stop. She is the only female emperor in all of Chinese history. She understood that in a deeply patriarchal society, her position was incredibly fragile. So when she identified a rival, even if it was her own family member, her own son, an old friend, she didn't just fire them, she eliminated them. She had them exiled, executed, or she wiped out their entire support network so they had no power base left.
She left no embers, not a single one.
And she ruled securely for decades because she understood that trying to negotiate with a deadly enemy is just delaying your own execution.
But here's the other side debate, and I need to push back hard on this one. In a modern context, an office, a family, a PTA meeting, does crushing really apply? If I crush my rival in the accounting department, if I try to get him fired and ruin his reputation, do I not just become a pariah? Doesn't that make me the villain that everyone else then gangs up on?
You have to interpret crushing correctly for the 21st century. We aren't using swords and poison anymore. We use influence. Crushing an enemy in the modern world means neutralizing their ability to harm you.
Okay, give me a concrete example of what that looks like.
Let's say you have a rival at work who is actively undermining you. They're spreading rumors, trying to steal your projects. The idealist approach is to try and talk it out. Hey, can we talk? Let's collaborate.
And the rival uses that meeting to get more information to stab you in the back with?
Exactly. The Law 15 approach is you don't talk it out. You document their failures. You build a coalition of other allies they have annoyed. You present a calm, logical case to management that leads to them being transferred to a different department where they have zero overlap with you or your projects. You don't just win the argument. You remove their platform entirely. You strip them of their leverage to ever harm you again.
So it's not about cruelty for cruelty's sake. It's about finality. It's about making sure they can't come back at you next quarter when they've regrouped.
Correct, as the source says. The bird of prey does not hate the lamb. It just eats it. It's not personal. It's physics. If you leave a dangerous person with leverage over you, they will eventually use it.
But what if you're the lamb? What if you're the weak one in the equation? That brings us to Law 22. Use the surrender tactic.
This is the brilliant twist. When you are weak, your instinct is to fight, to go down swinging. We have this romantic idea of the noble martyr. I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees.
And the source says, that is stupid.
It says, don't do that. If you fight when you are weak, you just get crushed. And you prove Law 15 for your enemy. You give them the satisfaction of utterly destroying you. Instead, you surrender.
But isn't surrender just losing?
No. Surrender is a tool of power. Look at the playwright Bertolt Brecht. It's 1947, the height of the Red Scare. He's brought before the House Un-American Activities Committee. They are hunting communists in Hollywood, everyone else who is accused, the Hollywood 10. They fight. They scream at the committee. They quote the Constitution.
And they all go to jail and get blacklisted for years.
Correct. He plays the submissive, confused intellectual. He wears a suit that's a little too big for him. He smokes a cheap cigar. He answers their questions with these long, confusing, polite, pseudo-obedient answers. He acts like he respects their authority completely. He even translates some of his German poems for them, but he changes the meaning just slightly to make them sound harmless and patriotic.
He mocked them with obedience.
He did. He gave them nothing actionable, but he made them feel powerful and smart. The committee loved him. They called him a cooperative witness. They let him go. He walked right out of the hearing, got on the first plane to Europe, and continued his legendary career. He won because he surrendered.
The logic is, surrender gives you time to recover. It lulls the victor into a state of satisfaction and arrogance.
Exactly. It's like tuning the other cheek, not to be good, but to infuriate and unsettle the conqueror. If you surrender, they stop hitting you. They think the war is over. And while they're off patting themselves on the back, you are in the shadows, recovering, regrouping, and sharpening your knife.
That is a chilling reimagining of a biblical concept. It's weaponized passivity. Okay, let's talk about how people see us while we're doing all this maneuvering. Section 5, perception, reputation, and theatricality. Law 5 says, so much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life.
It is the cornerstone of power.
The story of Chu Lang is my absolute favorite in the whole book. This is just pure theater. You have to set the scene.
It's ancient China, the Three Kingdoms period. Chu Liang is a legendary strategist. He's in a tiny small town with just a handful of old retired soldiers. And he gets word that a massive enemy army, led by his great rival Sima Yi, is approaching. We're talking 150,000 troops. Chu Liang is toast. He can't fight, he can't run.
So what does he do? What's the move?
He orders the city gates thrown wide open. No guards on the walls, no archers, nothing. Then he goes to the top of the city wall, sits down, lights some incense, and starts calmly playing a lute, just playing music.
So the enemy general, Sima Yi, arrives at the head of his massive army. He sees the open gates. He sees his arch nemesis just chilling, playing the lute.
Yeah.
And he thinks, what?
He stops the entire army. He knows Chu Liang. He knows this man is a brilliant trickster, a master of the ambush. He thinks Chu Liang never takes risks like this. If he's sitting there that calm with the gates wide open, there must be a track so devastating that it will wipe out my entire army. There are probably thousands of archers hidden in every single building.
So the general is terrified of an empty city.
He turns his entire army around and flees. Chu Liang defeated 150,000 men with a musical instrument and his reputation.
He didn't fire a single arrow. He fought them with his reputation alone.
That is the ultimate power of reputation. If you build a reputation for being cunning or competent or even ruthlessly dangerous, that reputation does the hard work for you. You don't have to fight every battle. People fear you or respect you before you even walk into the room.
But sometimes you don't want to look dangerous. Sometimes you want to look like a complete idiot. Law 21. Play a sucker to catch a sucker. Seem dumber than your mark.
This is the Columbo strategy, the detective who's always like, oh, just one more thing, I'm so confused.
Exactly. Seem dumber than your mark.
Intelligence is a major vanity for most people. They want to be the smartest person in the room. If you appear smarter than them, they immediately put their guard up. They view you as a threat. But if you make them feel superior, if you ask dumb questions and let them explain things to you,
the feeling of intellectual superiority you give them will disarm their suspicion muscles. I just love that phrase from the book. Suspicion muscles.
it's so true. If I think you're a bit slow, a bit naive, I will talk freely in front of you. I'll reveal my secret plans. I might even try to scam you, not realizing for a second that you are the one setting a trap for me.
It effectively says, check your ego at the door. If you have a constant need to show off how smart you are losing power. If you can swallow your pride and play the fool, you can run circles around people.
And this all ties into the ultimate form of manipulating perception, all 27. Play on people's need to believe to create a cult-like following.
The blueprint for a cult in this book is frighteningly simple. It's basically 4 steps. And once you hear them, you start seeing them everywhere.
It's a bit chilling.
Step 1, keep your message vague but simple.
Use big, empty words like freedom, truth, energy, the source. Words that mean everything and nothing at the same time.
Step 2, emphasize enthusiasm over rationality and intellect.
Right. Don't use charts and data. Use music, chanting, special lighting. Bypass the logical brain and go straight for the emotions.
Step 3. Create an us versus them dynamic, a group structure.
The world doesn't understand us. The establishment wants to keep you poor. You need an enemy to bond the group together.
And finally, step 4. Disguise your source of income.
Never let your followers see that you are getting rich off of them. Make it look like all the money is for the cause or for the community.
Imagine if we started a deep dive cult. We tell everyone, hey, regular news is lying to you. Only the deep dive has the true knowledge. We use some cool synth music. We say the mainstream listeners are all sheep. And then we start selling a $500 course on mental freedom.
You'd be rich in a month. It's a terrifyingly effective formula.
It is.
It explains everything from historical charlatans selling magic elixirs to modern crypto scams or even certain political movements. People have an overwhelming desire to believe in something. If you offer them a simple cause, a vague promise of a better future, and an enemy to hate, they will follow you anywhere.
And the other side argument here is, you need to recognize this formula so you don't fall for it yourself.
Precisely. If someone is promising you the world with vague words and telling you that outsiders just don't get it, run. That is Law 27 in action.
We've covered a lot of ground here. We've looked at the darker laws, the really manipulative ones, but we promised a middle ground, Section 6. How do we synthesize all of this? Because we have laws like master your timing and say less than necessary, which seem like wise, prudent advice. And then we have crush your enemy and use your friends, which seem, well, evil. What is the common thread?
The common thread, the master key to this entire book, is the control of emotions.
Go deeper on that. What do you mean?
Look at all the failures we discuss. Why did Nicolas Fouquet fail? Pride. He wanted to show off. Why did Michael III fail? Naive trust. He wanted to believe in the goodness of his friend. Why did Chiang Kai-shek fail? Hope and mercy. He hoped for a peaceful negotiation. The source emphasizes over and over that anger, love, vanity, and any emotional reaction are the single greatest barrier to power.
So the master of power isn't the person who is the most cruel. The master is the person who is the most in control of themselves.
Yes. Law 9 says, win through your actions, never through argument. Why? Because arguing is emotional. It creates resentment even if you win. And action is objective. A demonstration convinces people without offending their ego.
So if I'm a listener right now and I'm thinking, look, I'm not a sociopath, I don't want to crush people, the real value here is self-defense.
Absolutely, 100%. Even if you choose not to practice the darker laws, you must be able to recognize them when they're being used on you. The bird of prey does not blame the lamb, it just eats it.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the lamb.
You need to know when someone is playing the sucker on you. You need to recognize when someone is trying to infect you with their constant misfortune.
And you need to practice Law 48, assume formlessness.
The final law.
Be like water. Don't be rigid. Don't be obsessed with one way of doing things, one personality. Adaptability is the ultimate defense and the ultimate offense. If you are formless, no one can pin you down. No one can figure out your strategy until it's far too late.
The other side conclusion here really seems to be that this book isn't a prescription for evil. It's a description of reality.
That's it. A map of a minefield isn't evil just because it shows you where the mines are. It's just a map. You can use that map to plant mines yourself, or you can use it to walk across the field without getting blown up. The good person who ignores these dynamics is often the one who causes the most confusion and ruin because they are naive about human nature. They're the one who walks on the mines and takes everyone else down with them.
So here's the actionable takeaway for you, the listener. It's that velvet glove concept. Be polite. Be civilized. Be a good person on the outside, but maintain your iron hand underneath. Keep your boundaries. Keep your awareness.
And use selective honesty, not to manipulate for evil, but to protect yourself and others. Know when to speak and know when to stay silent. That isn't lying. That is prudence.
We're coming to the end of this deep dive, and I think we have to leave you with one final provocative thought from the source material.
Power is essentially amoral. That is the hardest pill to swallow in this entire philosophy. It's just a tool. You can use a hammer to build a house for your family, or you can use that same hammer to crack a skull. The hammer doesn't care, it has no conscience. You are the one with the conscience.
If you refuse to pick up the hammer because you think all hammers are bad, you're not being moral. You're just leaving your house unfinished and your head unprotected.
The question isn't whether you play the game. You're already in it the moment you interact with another human being. The question is, will you be the player or will you be the pawn?
That is the other side of the argument. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Stay safe out there. It's a court out there.